Um, Welcome everyone this morning. Thank you guys for letting us be a part of your Thursday morning. Entrepreneurship, something we live and breathe in our industry. So anytime we get to share some knowledge, offer some advice, and guide folks in the right direction, it's something we really appreciate. So I'm James Coles. I am a graduate of the University of South Carolina. I've been in banking for about 15 years, and I manage our office of Pinnacle Financial Partners in North Charleston. I've been up here for about 6, 7 years, and like I said, I do a little bit of everything. I'm kind of like a generalist where I have hands in a lot of different things, but my favorite thing is probably working with small business owners, helping provide solutions and helping them craft, successful plans and stuff like that to run and operate the business. And then I'll throw it over to you, Stephen, and let you get rolling.
Yeah, well, thanks y'all for having us. It's exciting to be here. Similar to James, I've been in banking for about 12 years now, and I too work with our consumer and small business clients here at Pinnacle. My office is located downtown in the Morrison Yard building, so I apologize for the glare on the screen. The sun is literally directly behind me right now, but hopefully as the call goes on, it'll get a little higher in the sky. So apologize for that. But similar to James, I too work with a lot of small businesses, anyone from, business in its infancy, where it's really just an idea, to some of the more mature businesses that have been in business for decades, if not, generations of families. So it's always a lot of fun to work with those small business owners and to get to be a part of the success that they have at whichever stage they're in. So what we're going to focus on today is planning for a healthy business. And the information that we're using comes from the Small Business Administration and is available to you guys if you ever wanted to do some research on your own through the FDIC's website. That is the federal government. It's a lot of great information. This is just one of many modules that are out there. So be, reassured that if this is something that you're truly interested in pursuing, there is a ton of information out there that you can use as resources and to research on your own. But with that being said, why is planning important? Well, to kind of use a metaphor, if you want to be healthy, you've got to plan to be healthy. If you want to run a marathon, you've got to put a plan in place to how you're going to get yourself ready to go and run a marathon. In the same sort of, vein, planning for a business, if you want your business to be successful, you have to plan. You've got an idea, you want to make it successful. So how that happens all comes down to the execution. And we're going to talk a lot about how that execution can be done in an organized fashion today. So planning involves being organized, it involves monitoring conditions, and then it involves pivoting if necessary. To use a personal example, when I was in college, if I wanted to watch Netflix, I had to go on a website, click on the movies I wanted to watch, and a couple of days later, I would get an envelope in the mail with the DVD in it. Now, if I want to watch Netflix, I just click a button on my TV remote and it pops up, and I have hundreds of thousands of things that I can watch at my disposal. Obviously the conditions changed, and Netflix was able to adapt to that situation to make their business competitive, even though market needs and demands changed. So with that being said, there was a participant guide provided to you guys, or if not, we'll have it sent out. But there's definitely no pre-test. We don't have any expectation of a test, and there's no post-test. So we'll go ahead and address that. Basically, this material is just available for you guys to use as a resource down the road should you want to refer back to it in your future endeavors. So moving right along here. Our agenda today is going to really, talk about a case study. So Sophia is planning to build a cell phone business, or cell phone repair business, I should say. And using her as an example, we're going to walk through the different steps of the planning process. And, as part of that, you'll also have different worksheets within the participant guide that will help you through your own planning process with a lot of kind of leading questions, worksheets, diagrams, etc. And then ultimately, we're going to get to the 4-step planning model. I am going to cover the first 2 steps of the planning model, and then I'm going to turn it over to James, and he's going to take us home with sections 3 and 4. And then after that, we're going to give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions you have. So, that being said, let me get organized for a second. All right, so learning objectives today. We want to talk about how an evolving planning process can help you make key decisions as a business owner. By evolving, you've got to be strategic. You have to be flexible. Think of the pandemic as an example. If you didn't know how to be flexible in March of 2020, you had to learn really fast, or you just weren't in business anymore. The situation required it. We as a bank, we went through the same thing, just like everyone else. We're going to talk about how you can convert a vague idea into a resource plan. So vague idea being, I'm going for a run one day and all of a sudden this amazing idea pops into my head. How do I take that just great idea and turn it into something tangible, that execution piece? And then along with that, we're going to talk about why it's important to have a good credit score, why it's important to have a good relationship with your bank or with a lender. And then beyond that, we'll go into how a business plan is absolutely imperative to helping you be successful, and how having a business plan that is a living document, i.e. something that is going to evolve and change as your business becomes more mature. And then from there, we'll get into the benefits of creating a day-to-day action plan. So ultimately, people get into business because they have this idea of freedom. I don't have a boss. I can do whatever I want to because I am the boss. But on top of that, or along with that, if something goes wrong, you are the boss. You have to be the person who knows what to do and how to steer through those difficult times. So ultimately, you want to be working on your business, not working in your business. If your business can't operate without you, that puts a lot of stress on you. And so you want to get to a place where you can create a day-to-day action plan for how your business will run. Not how you will run your business, but how your business will run. And there's an important distinction there. All right, so that being said, let's talk about Sophia. So as I mentioned, Sophia is going to be our case study today, and she has a great idea. So Sophia is the mother of 2 smart and hungry teenagers. She has an idea to start a business repairing cell phones and small appliances. Her sons and several friends think this is a terrific idea, but Sophia has to plan. She needs to figure out how she will make money and how she's going to finance to pay for her startup costs. She needs to complete 4 steps in her planning, and we're going to go through those 4 steps. At each step, she asks and answers specific questions. As she progresses through the steps, questions get more specific and the answers become much more detailed. It took Sophia more than 2 years until she was able to quit her day job and begin to work full-time for herself. As we review Sophia's planning process, you can begin to apply these 4 steps to your own business. So, again, looking at the slides, how can she make her new cell phone repair business a success? What does she have to do to get from idea to success? All about that execution that we talked about. The 4 planning steps over a 2-year period. Now, the 2-year period is not a cookie cutter model. It could take several years for some people. It could take not long for others. It's all about, the circumstances as they apply to you and the business that you're trying to start. And again, as you look through and read about Sophia, apply that to your own So let's go to the next page. So in talking about where you are in your planning, there is a worksheet within the participant guide that will kind of help you through this. We're not going to really go through all this, in a kind of participatory way, the way it details here on the slide. But again, that participant guide gives you the ability to refer back to something in the future should you want to have a guide helping you through this process. All right. So this is a kind of the 4 steps all sort of listed out. And again, we're going to go through each one individually. We started with the back of the napkin plan. That's what I talked about, where you're going for a jog one day and you have this great idea, or you're sitting in a coffee shop and the light bulb goes off. You turn your napkin over and you start writing it out, all these ideas. That's, really where you're, coming up with the idea, the feasibility of the idea, some of the things that just immediately pop into your mind, like how is this going to work? And then from there, when that back of the napkin to the action plan, in the middle there is basically the how. So the resource plan, that's going to be, what's it going to cost to get this thing started? Not only from a financial standpoint, but also from a, learning standpoint, from a hiring standpoint, from a, what have you. I mean, you name it, market research, competition, all of those things are things you would want to take into account when you're coming up with your resource plan. From there, we get to the business plan. So that gets a little bit more specific. Each step, you're getting more and more specific as to how this is how it's gonna look and how it's gonna go. So business plan, if I'm gonna bring in X amount of money to meet my needs, well, how am I gonna come up with the rest of it? If I need to borrow money, I got to show somebody who I'm asking money for how this thing's going to work. When are they going to get their money back if they're going to, giving you a loan? How are you going to drive revenue? How are you going to pay yourself so that you live? We've all seen Shark Tank. Sometimes on Shark Tank, they get really specific into their questions and they start asking some of these entrepreneurs, you're coming here asking us for all this money, yet you're paying yourself $250,000 a year. Like, you're living high on the hog, yet you're asking us for money. So all those things are things you want to take into account. How can I be as nimble as possible in getting my business started so that when I'm asking for money, I can make that investor feel good about not only are they going to make money or get their money back rather, but they're also going to make money. So we'll go through these 4 steps here together. And again, when you get to the action plan, it's not set in stone. Neither the action plan, the business plan, none of that stuff is set in stone. You've got to have it in your mind that things change, and should they change based upon conditions in the market, consumer wants, consumer needs, competition, what have you, you've got to be ready to pivot, and you've got to sort of strategize on what that looks like and be thinking about it at all times. So let's go back to Sophia here. So as you can see, this is Sophia's planning process. So in her year 1, she was working full-time at her day job. She has this plan and she writes it down on the back of the napkin. She wants to start repairing cell phones. She says that is an industry where there's a huge need, and maybe in her market, there was nowhere to go to get your cell phone fixed. You either had to mail it somewhere or you had to drive somewhere or whatnot. So there was a need, and she saw that she had the ability to fill that need. So she then comes up with a resource plan. That began in year 1 too. So there's definitely overlap here. Again, everybody's situation is different. So whatever job or whatever, whatever business you're looking to start, it doesn't have to be a clean, finish step 1 before you can start step 2. You can be moving, kind of working on all of them at once, but ultimately you want to make sure that each one is solid before you really feel good about the next one. So again, she gets to the resource plan, and then in year 2, she gets a business plan. she realizes I might need to borrow money, but my credit's not that good. It's gonna be hard for me to borrow money with bad credit. So I need to start working on my credit. I got a credit card from college that I haven't paid off. That's just been sitting there. It's weighing me down, or I've never had credit. That can also be something that, prevents you from having access to credit. And, ultimately, having the ability to borrow money just gives you an extra tool in your tool belt, so to speak, so that as a business owner, you have options available to you that you can, rely upon should you need them. If you want to grow your business, you may need to borrow money, get a loan to expand for another location or for more equipment or what have you. And if you have bad credit, it's not going to just go away on its own. It's something that you're going to have to look at and face head on and deal with and improve. So moving on, beyond that, she gets past that phase in year 2. She had a job where she could move into a part-time role, and then she could spend the other time working for herself. And then finally, kind of towards the end of year 2, into year 3, she quits her old job and she starts her new job for herself. So when you're looking at your back of the napkin plan, let's see, some of the things that you want to be taking into account, obviously, are the things listed on the screen. Your credit score, do you need a website? That's the kind of the real, tangible things that are going to help you with regard to actually operating the business. But from a higher level point of view, if you're trying to come up with that back of the napkin idea or that great idea, some of the things you can do are just think about what your driving forces are in your life. What inspires you? What do you love to do? What is your goal in life? And, how will this business that you plan to start, how will it help you, how does it fit into that motivation, your personal motivation, your driving forces in your life? Because ultimately, if you're doing something, even if you're running the business by yourself, but you're completely unhappy and it's counter to who you are as a person, that's not going to be, a recipe for long-term sustainable success. So that's a good, a good kind of early activity or just sort of thing to think about is what drives me, what makes me happy, why do I do what I do, or what do I like doing? All those things you can ask yourself. And then again, with the back of the napkin, the more scenarios that you can think through, the more details you can come up with, the better off you'll be, because there's no substitute for experience. But the more that you can definitely think through things before they arise, the better confidence you'll have to face those things, should they arise down the road. All right. So let's dive in here to step 1, the key question. So again, this is just kind of piggybacking on what we just talked about, but what benefits do you want to get from your business? So monetary, obviously you want to start a business that makes money. Ultimately, if it's going to be what you're doing, you're going to have to make money. So, but aside from that, going back to purpose, what non-monetary benefits am I going to get? How does this serve my purpose as a person, as a human being, or what I want to get out of my life? What size business do I need to build to achieve those benefits? If your idea is to change the way people travel or drive or what have you, you're going to need to come up with a big idea. It's going to have to scale. I mean, you're going to, that's a lot bigger than, my neighborhood doesn't have a really good coffee shop and I want to start a coffee shop in my neighborhood. Well, figuring those things out on the front end helps you in terms of how you're approaching your business. Have I identified a real business opportunity on which I can capitalize? Again, going back to, does this business have the ability to make money? If you are driven by smiling faces, you can go and give flowers away on a street corner, but that's not going to make money. You're going to make a lot of people happy, but you're not going to make any money doing it. So again, kind of coming up with something that meets, obviously, your goal of being happy and achieving that purposeful, objective, but also, having some financial relevance as well. So, and finally, what assets do I need to purchase, rent, or lease? Who am I going to need to hire? All of those things are very important. If you're going to have a storefront, well, then you need to know, is that storefront that I'm picking, to be in a place where people are going to see me and be able to access me easily, what's that going to cost me? It's one thing to have a business, but if you're tucked behind the backside of a shopping center and nobody knows you're there, well, then, you're going to have a hard time staying in business. So you got to be visible. All right. Let's go to her resource plan. So back to Sophia again. Right here, we are in her resource plan. So we've talked about her back of the napkin plan. We have now gotten to a place where we're going to be figuring out what it's actually going to cost her realistically to get this started. So good news. A few months have passed and Sophia's done some research. She refined her initial idea and she's decided to specialize in repairing cell phones, iPads, and tablets. She might expand into small appliance repair later. To get to this point, she asked some colleagues who already have business for advice. She went to a local women's business center and got help thinking through her business model. Sophia took a course to learn more about what she needed to do to get ready. Best of all, she began a resource plan to record how much money she would need to open her doors, keep operating for at least 6 months. So at the first step of the planning process, a ballpark dollar figure is okay. You get into the resource plan, which is step 2, that's when you want to start getting a little bit more specific and realistic with what things are going to cost. So as you can see on the screen, this is Sophia's resource plan. She is estimating that this is going to cost her $21,000 to get off the ground and started. And note, that does not include what it's going to cost her to live while she's getting this business up and running. So that's a key point to remember. You can't just expect living expenses to be included in a loan amount if you're going to get a loan to start your business. That's going to be, you're going to get a lot of scrutiny on that with regard to your living expenses. So more often than not, your living expenses are going to have to be coming from your own savings if you're not going to be working a side job along, during this time. So just keep that in mind. And then when we get to the second slide here, we're seeing that Sophia's owner equity, that means that the amount of money that she is putting into this venture to start is $7,000. So she needs to raise $14,000 in order to get her business off the ground. And one kind of rule of thumb, you don't want to borrow more than 200% of the money you plan to invest in your business. So if you're going to be putting 10 grand into your business, you don't want to be borrowing more than 20 grand. So just kind of keep that in mind. The last thing you want to be doing as you're trying to get your business up and running is to be suffocating in debt to where, your business and your ability to build your business is hindered by the amount of debt you've taken on just to get in that position. It's kind of makes the venture challenging and difficult to even get off the ground if you're in that position right from the start. So, all right. Now let's go to some resource planning ideas. Ultimately, if you read through all of these things, the way that I would describe it is market research. So resource planning ideas. So interviewing stakeholders. A stakeholder is, they may not be somebody who is going to be working for you or investing in your business. But going back to the idea of a neighborhood coffee shop, well, if you have neighbors, you're going to need them to support your coffee shop. So talk to them. What do you want to see out of a coffee shop in our neighborhood? They're stakeholders. They're going to provide you with valuable information that is free. Keyword there, free information. What's the ideal location? Do your research on where are the retail, if it's a retail storefront, where are those locations that are going to have the most visibility, where just having a sign on the door will be free marketing in and of itself. How can you get your equipment and your supplies at the cheapest possible rate? Pros and cons of buying in bulk. A lot of retail stores will tell you, especially when we came out of the pandemic, when supply chains were all out of whack, You know, I have a client who owns a bicycle shop, and he was having to buy his expected inventory for Christmas in like, you know, June or whatever, January of, you know, the year before. So he's only because he didn't know whether or not that particular, you know, product would be available. It was all so out of whack. And then next thing you know, fast forward a year, he's got a glut of inventory that essentially is, you know, all of his revenue is tied up and waiting for those bikes and what have you to sell. So knowing what, you know, a smart amount of inventory to keep on hand at any time is all part of something you should be doing with your research as well. What is it going to cost you to pay people? What are your taxes going to cost? How much is insurance going to cost? Insurance is expensive. A lot of people don't think about it, but it's very expensive. So you got to take that into account too. What services are you going to need to pay for on a monthly basis? Like, are you going to need IT services? Are you going to need a website? Are you going to need to have somebody who's maintaining that stuff for you? If your computer system or your phone system goes down, like, who are you going to call, or who are you going to ask to help you? You know, you got to think about all that. And then ultimately, let's just say, are you ready to go to the next step? So now you have your resource plan. Are you ready to put a business plan into place? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to James to take us away on the business plan.
All right, thank you. I guess I'll just let you keep driving the presentation if you don't mind, Stephen.
Yeah, just call it out when you need me to change.
You know, I go over to, yep, perfect. All right, so thank you, Stephen, for getting us started. Just real quick, just wanted to say Stephen made some really good points that aren't necessarily in this presentation or on paper, but, you know, figuring out, you know, what's your why, you know, how is this business going to serve, you know, your life's purpose is such a critical and integral thing that you need to think about, that I think a lot of people don't recognize when they start this journey. So being able to have some self-awareness and try to, you know, have some, you know, deep thoughts around that is particularly important, in my opinion, when you begin this journey. But so for Sophia, you know, she's thought of, you know, what she wants to do. She's answered key questions. She started to think about, hey, you know, what resources am I going to need to get this thing up off the ground? So the next step is actually starting to put that stuff on paper, and, you know, let's start to tell the story of what I want to do. So, and that's exactly what a business plan is. You know, it's basically a story that you share with lenders, potential investors, maybe it's family or friends, you know, that tells the story of, you know, hey, what am I trying to do here and how am I going to do it? You know, it's not just, you know, a stagnant document. You know, it's a living, breathing idea that basically clarifies your ideas and motivates lenders, stakeholders, family, friends to help support your business. And, you know, it can take some time. It's not something you want to, you know, try to rush through and overlook. You know, you want to spend, you know, those hours really looking at the details, the what ifs, and, you know, this, that, and the other. So the slide here that's showing, you know, it's a nice little thing, you know, just, you know, real concise. You know, what is the business plan? Tells the story. You know, you're selling your business to people that are going to help you get it to where you need to be. 3 years of financial projections. That's kind of an industry standard. You know, where are you now? Where are you going to be in 3 years? How do you get there? And it, you know, clearly outlines, you know, how you're getting from A to B, doing that. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead, and if you want to flip to the next slide, Stephen, I'll give you a quick update on Sophia. So, you know, what she's been up to, she has, you know, completed a resource plan. She's refined her ideas, and, you know, for example, she discovered that she needed more money to start and operate her business than she first, you know, estimated. And I think a lot of people will, you know, will find that true, that, you know, it's like, as you get into the process, the more digging you do, the more, financing you probably need. So as part of her homework, she talked with the bank officer who encouraged Sophia to raise her credit score. So to determine this, they looked at Sophia's credit history. The officer encouraged her to start writing a business plan to be ready to prove. She has collateral to put into the business, equity to put into the business. So one thing she came to is, when she was looking at her own personal finances, she noticed that she needed to reduce her credit card debt. So what she did was really smart. She talked to her family because she was going to have to make some daily changes that were going to affect not just her, but also her household. When you want something, a lot of times you got to give up something to get there. And that's what she recognized. So basically she explained the situation with her kids. They all agreed, hey, we can eat out less often, we can buy fewer clothes. And it sounded like when I was kind of reading through this that they weren't necessarily, paying off the stuff they were buying with the credit card. It kind of sounds like they weren't paying it off every month. So they're actually paying more than retail price on these items that they're buying because, they're paying interest on that balance that's sitting out there. Her older son decided to help out. He got a part-time job. They got a cheaper cell phone plan. Sophia cut back on Starbucks and, her multiple Amazon shipments that were coming in every week. And these things, they took time and they weren't necessarily easy. But, over time, they all add up. So within a year, Sophia was able to pay off her credit cards and she was able to put more money into her savings. And while doing so, by reducing the amount of outstanding debt you have in relation to your balances, that's actually going to improve your credit score. If you're, over, I can't remember, I can't remember if it's 10%. I think if you're over 10, maybe Stephen, is it 10 or 30% utilization that'll drag you down?
30.
Okay. So 30, if you're using if you're over 30% of whatever your credit limit is on your credit card, that's going to be looked at as a negative on your credit report, which a lot of people, they're not aware of. But during this time, while Sophia was working on refining her own personal finances, she also worked on several drafts of her business plan. So she needed help with this, and she went to a community center that offered some mentorship. She's able to get with a coach who helped her write parts of the plan, and then when it was ready, she shared it with some close friends and extended family. The folks she shared it with, they were impressed with the ideas and thought that her goals were realistic. So together, they actually pooled their money and loaned her the startup funds she needed to get the business up and running, which is excellent. So, long story short there, just, it's something to not be overlooked. Take some time, you got to do some self digging, analyze, hey, what am I spending? Where's my money going that I have currently? And then, once you realize how much you need to get this business up and running, you got to say, okay, well, here's my shortfall. How am I going to make up that shortfall? Can I do it by, let's say like bootstrapping, which is, basically you're self-funding the business by, cutting these daily expenses back. You still might have a shortfall. So then at that point, you're like, hey, well, how am I going to get, to that next step? So, Stephen, if you wouldn't mind, click over to the next slide for me. So, once you determine like, hey, I've done all I can do, I need some help, I need some further funding to get my idea up off the ground. This slide shows, a good source of where different funding can come from. So you've got, angel investors, bootstrapping, crowdsourcing, friends and family members, incubators, local and state economic development organizations. Here in the Charleston area, there's a lot of good resources. And I think a lot of people just aren't aware these things are out there, but there's a bank on every street corner. I can't speak for every bank, but I know if you walk into one of our offices and say, hey, I got some questions about starting a business, someone in one of our offices is going to be able to sit down with you and say, hey, let's talk, what you got going on, what can I do to help? We have the SCORE program, which is in Charleston. They offer free business advice as experienced entrepreneurs. all kinds of different folks from different industries, and basically it's a mentorship that, in my opinion, is just invaluable because it's free. Um, Obviously you got friends and family. That can be, interesting combination there. Just due to the dynamic, you're close with people, and sometimes money and family and friends just maybe doesn't work right. But it all depends. But those are all, like I said, different sources of where you could possibly obtain funding. But um, you know, regardless, the one common denominator with all these different sources is that all of them are going to want to see a business plan. So um, not one person is going to be able to say, hey, you know what, here, have my money. Good luck, and just pay me back in a little bit. So they're going to want to know the why, how you getting there, how that, like Stephen previously said, how are they going to get paid back, and then hopefully, they're going to be able to make some money with you. So next slide, please. All right, so I really like this slide. It's pretty cool. So once you have, your business plan, you sat down, you listed out all these things. Oh, also too, sorry to go back, but on the participant guide, hopefully everyone gets a copy of that. I think Mindy and Brandon are working on that, but on page 13 of that, there's an example of a business plan, and it's really, really good stuff. It's from the SBA. It's basically just gives you, hey, what section should you include in your business plan? What's a description of what's in there? Like what should you be detailing within that, and just a really, really nice resource there. There's also, you can go online and find a bunch of stuff, but like I said, within the participant guide, this is a really nice example of one if you've never seen a business plan. Back to this slide. So now that you got your business plan, you need to start thinking about being strategic. So it's like, how are you going to be able to change with economic conditions? How are you going to get an action plan in place? It's like, once you get this business up and running, like, how are you going to be able to tackle your goals, your tasks, stuff like that. But if you look at this slide, it's a boat, and it appears to be traveling left to right. So the question that's up there, if you want to meet up with the sailboat, which direction would you steer? And at first, probably the first thought is like, well, I steer towards the boat. But you would need to navigate to the right of the ship because the sailboat is traveling to the right. So if you steer to its current location, you're going to miss the boat. I think it's a pretty simple but powerful metaphor for what being strategic means. Basically you assume that everything that affects your business will change. Customers come and go, vendors increase the prices. Stephen mentioned, COVID came, that affected, everyone in all kinds of different facets. You had to be nimble, you had to be able to pivot, you had to do things that you'd never done before. And that's a challenge, for everyone. And like I said, it wasn't just for, Main Street businesses. It affected us the same way. We're a billion-dollar company, but at the same time, like it was tough. It was real tough. We had to change everything we did, rewrite our expectations, our business plan for the year. And then you move forward. But, what we're talking about here is, kind of like an action plan. Once you get past the business plan, since new challenges are coming, when you face those challenges, you need to put in place an action plan. And what that does, it helps you strategize your time. It helps you focus your energies on whatever the top priority goals are. It helps you identify, lower priority goals, and then hopefully you're at a point where you have folks on board that you can delegate stuff to, and basically keep that entrepreneurial mindset where you're up there looking at a 30,000 foot view, and have folks taking care of the stuff that may not be as important to what the long-term vision of the company is. Let's see. All right, let's do another little update on Sophia, and you can switch to the next slide, please, Stephen. So Sophia's been in business for a while now. She has great customers, and she's able to meet her financial obligations. She's paying rent, utilities, and loan payments. She's even able to pay herself a small working wage. So, in her opinion, she's doing great. Um, but to keep up the great work, Sophia's planning needs to change again. Now she needs to increase her customer base so she can maintain and even grow the success that she's already had. So what Sophia needs now is basically an action plan that's going to help her identify her goals. And basically what she's doing here, she's using what are called SMART goals. And she's having deadlines and basically a specific plan on who's responsible for what. She also needs to plan, how she's going to finance the resources that she needs to meet these goals. And while she's going through the process, she realized that some of these tasks can be managed by her. These are the tasks that make the best use of her time. Other tasks are best outsourced to others, or maybe she's got an assistant that she uses. But by prioritizing her tasks, Sophia can focus on what's most important for her business and basically free up time to achieve that work-life balance that once again is super important. So let's go ahead and look at what she is trying to do here. So SMART, I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this, but SMART goals are basically an acronym, and basically it stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And if you don't mind, go back to the previous slide, Stephen. Thank you. So in the example here on the screen, you can see, all right, so what's her two goals? She wants to achieve an average monthly customer count of 500 folks within 3 months. And then she also wants to reduce her rental costs by 10% by the end of the year. So, what makes it SMART, it's sorry, just lost my train of thought. It's specific. How many? So it's measurable. Basically it's attainable. It's time-based. It's like, I want to do this within 3 months, or I want to do this by the end of the year. Basically you're adding, when you use the SMART goal method, you're adding some common sense and accountability to what you're trying to achieve. So the way this thing is laid out real nice, it's got your goal. Okay, so what tasks do I need to do to achieve that goal? So she's got her task here. So okay, so I want to up my monthly customer count to 500. So I need to advertise in the business journal. I'm going to increase my social media outreach, and then I'm going to identify some more effective marketing opportunities. So how does she measure that? Like how am I going to look at what I'm trying to do and say, am I being successful with this? So she, in my opinion, gives herself a pretty stout criteria here. She wants 400 of those 500 new customers basically in 1 month, and then month 2 another 50, month 3 another 50. So that's how she's going to hold herself accountable. Like, hey, am I on track to getting this goal accomplished? When she want it done by? She wants it done by September. And then how much is it going to cost me to do this? So she's looking at $300 for advertising. And I'll just tell you, with advertising, we're kind of an interesting company. We actually don't advertise as a company. So if you choose to advertise, how are you going to measure the effectiveness of spending that $300 on advertising? She's going to put flyers in college common areas and coffee shops. So she's identified where she wants to advertise. Got website upgrade, stuff like that. If you get down to the other example, reduce rental costs by 10%. So she wants to hire an attorney to basically, maybe she's like renting month to month, and she can get a discount if she goes up to a 2-year lease. So she wants a 10% rent reduction. She wants it done by December 31st. And then for resources, she's got, legal fees, how much is this going to cost me? So obviously, if you're looking at 10% rent reduction, does it make sense to hire an attorney to get there? There's a break-even point. If you hire an attorney to get you a $2,000 net rental reduction, basically, did it cost you $2,000 with the attorney to get that? It might just be a wash. So just something to consider when you do that. All right, next slide, please, Stephen. So once again, SMART goals, are they specific? Are they measurable? Attainable, relevant, is it applicable to your business, and then time-based. You definitely, those things are a good starting point for just trying to figure out anything you want to do as far as bettering your business plan. And then to take us home, if you go to the next slide, please, Stephen. Just in summary, like I said, there's a lot of good information in this presentation. The participant guides, like I said, hopefully all of you guys get one of those. That's a really good resource for you. But like I said, just remember, there's not one way to do this. There's lots of folks that are, enjoying equal levels of success, and not all of them took the same path or journey to get there. They, they either had someone in their life, they, helped themselves, they had a good banker in their life, had a good pastor, they were able to lean on some past experiences, maybe they educated themselves. There's so many different things that go into it. But if you're doing the work, hey, identifying, hey, there are some basic steps that I need to move forward. Like I need to figure out, the plan, putting in the details, asking questions, you're gonna get there. So but just remember, like I said, planning process basically just helps to refine, take those vague ideas and makes it a little bit more crystal clear. It's not a stagnant document. Once you get your business plan created, it needs to be able to be dynamic. It needs to change with economic conditions, local conditions. Maybe you have different stages of your own life. Hey, what I'm doing in my 20s and my 30s may look different than what I'm doing in my 40s and 50s. Once again, that needs to be purpose driven. How do you want this business to serve your life and your purpose? Engage stakeholders in the process. Anyone that's helping you along the way, investing in you and your company, take them along with you for the ride. And then I guess lastly, just continue to think about where you want to go. What's my long-term vision? I always like to tell people, when you're thinking about building a business, think about reverse engineering. Like what's it look like when it's complete? Not necessarily where it is when it starts, but what's my finished product look like, and then build it kind of backwards. But that's about all I have. And then I don't know if Stephen, you want to throw in any last summary comments, and then we can take some questions.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, James. So the only thing I would add is, we both work for Pinnacle Financial Partners, and part of what we do is to provide effective advice to our, customers, stakeholders, clients, et cetera. And we offer a program called Masterminds, where it's a 6-week program where we work with business owners or entrepreneurs or people thinking of starting a business. And it's basically a book club. We use a book called The E-Myth, which is a great book for entrepreneurship. So if you are seriously interested in being a business owner or have an entrepreneurial mindset, highly recommend that you read that book. Again, it's called The E-Myth, and it's by Michael Gerber. But James and I each offer these mastermind courses throughout the year, 6-week course where we offer, we study that book and just talk about, in a group of like-minded individuals about, how we operate our business, or how we approach our business, and just the different ways of how your business serves your greater purpose, and how you can ultimately work on your business, not work in your business, so that you create a business that becomes a living thing in and of itself, and you are kind of the puppet master, so to speak, or the person just sort of creating the vision and applying those strategic maneuvers and whatnot to keep the business running successfully. So we will provide our contact information that can also be sent out afterwards. So that if anyone's interested, would definitely be would love to have you all join. And with that, I guess we'll turn it over to questions. So feel free to chime in or type it in the chat box, and we'll take a couple questions.
All right, guys, if you have any questions for James or Stephen, please put them in the chat right now. Also, I'm going to ask you guys to put your emails in the chat so we can send you all the great information they've provided us with for you guys. And so you guys can be entered into the $100 gift card giveaway. So go ahead and put your emails in the chat if you haven't done so already, and also put your questions in the chat for James and Stephen. Any questions? Let's see.
I'll just start by mentioning some of the other questions that have already been asked, and I don't know if everyone's had a chance to read through, but someone asked, I believe April asked, what is owner's equity? That's a great question. It basically just means, like in this example of Sophia, you know, we calculated that it was going to cost her $21,000 to get her business up and running. She has $7,000 in her savings account right now. So she's going to invest $7,000 into that business. That $7,000 is her equity. And then the $14,000 is what she's going to have to raise either through, you know, getting a loan or going to family and asking to, you know, to have them invest. All of those different, you know, ideas that James came up with in terms of how to raise money, that would be pertaining to that $14,000, but the owner equity is the $7,000 that Sophia is starting with. So great question.
Any other questions, guys?
And if there's no other questions, I just want to add too, like I said, there's a ton of resources out there. And I just think about when I was growing up, I didn't know any of this stuff that I do now was available or even out there. You know, I was a kid and I was, you know, college, and I was doing a lot of stuff that was not, you know, business or professionally oriented. And it's like, I had no idea that all these resources are out there. You know, you got a lot of folks that are invested in the community. They want to, you know, help everyone. You know, the saying, you know, a rising tide lifts all ships. You know, that's the mentality out there for a lot of these organizations. And, you know, most of their services and advice are free. So please use us as a resource. Use, you know, Mindy, Brandon, anyone that can help you get to where you need, you know, take advantage of that and be thankful that that is out there.
Absolutely.
And I'm just putting in the chat box that Increasing Hope is another great place. Dorothea Bernique started that organization. It's on Rivers Avenue in North Charleston, but it's a really impressive facility with a lot of just resources available to helping not only people in entrepreneurial type situations, but just financial wellness in general. HOPE stands for helping others prosper economically. So something for you all to research as well or look into. But again, just to piggyback on what James said, there's a ton of resources out there, whether you're using the internet, Small Business Administration website, you know, the FDIC, or here locally in Charleston, you got SCORE, which was mentioned in the chat box. And then ultimately, you know, if you are in a position where you want to start a business, everyone who's a successful business owner today was once in that position. So don't be afraid to go to those people or make relationships with those people or seek out mentors and just ask questions. That is going to be, you know, having real life, someone with real life experience that you can turn to or fall back on or ask questions to is going to be probably the most valuable resource that you can find, because you know, they'll have maybe not experienced those exact same trials and tribulations that you might face, but they'll know how to help you navigate it. and they'll be able to give you advice that you'll find useful. So it is a process, but the more planning that you can do on the front end, the more effort you put into it, the better your odds are. Again, going back to that execution piece, how well you execute your idea is what's going to make you successful.
Absolutely. All excellent insights here today, guys. Thank you so much for coming out. We'll give you guys another minute here to see if anybody has any questions. If not, then thank you again, James and Stephen, for coming out and doing this. This was very helpful, and we're going to get all of those participant guides out to everybody who is here today, so they can review everything.
Thank you guys for having us. This has been fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right. Doesn't look like we have any other questions. So I think we're going to call it here. Thank you again. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
Thank you guys.
Have a good one.
Take care.